Beloved people of God, good morning. Welcome to our Midweek Devotional from Parkwood Presbyterian Church. This is our special Holy Week edition of stories that you may have heard before, but maybe haven't gotten the whole story. Today, we are looking at the passage that comes directly after Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. So Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey on Palm Sunday, and then goes back out to the suburbs, or their ancient equivalent, to spend the night. Then the next morning, this is what happens. This is from Mark chapter 11, verses 15 through 19. Then they, meaning Jesus and his disciples, came to Jerusalem. And he entered the temple and began to drive out those who were selling and those who were buying in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves, and he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. He was teaching and saying, "Is it not written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." And when the chief priests and the scribes heard it, they kept looking for a way to kill him, for they were afraid of him, because the whole crowd was spellbound by his teaching. And when evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. There are several interesting things going on here. But to fully understand this story, you need to understand the layout of the temple in Jerusalem. The temple was it was a rectangle, but it was made of concentric courtyards. So there would be a wall and then a courtyard that made kind of a circle. And then within that, there would be another one and another one and another one, leading you up to the Holy of Holies. And with each courtyard, fewer and fewer people were allowed in that space. So anyone could use the outer courtyards, called the Gentile courtyards, and that's where people who were not even Jewish could come and learn and pray and worship God. Then you had the courtyard for women, where Jewish women could come and pray and offer sacrifices and do their thing. And then you had a courtyard specifically for Jewish men. Then you had a courtyard specifically for priests. And then you had the Holy of Holies in the center, which only the high priest could enter, and only once a year. So when Jesus gets to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover, he's not the only one that has traveled from far and wide to come to Jerusalem. And so folks would bring their sacrifices, would go to the temple to pray, etc. at that time. Well, folks who traveled from far away didn't necessarily want to carry doves, sheep, goats, etc. with them for that whole journey. And so sometimes they would bring money from their hometown, then they would have to change it into a different kind of currency, and then they would buy their sacrifices there at the temple. Well, in this particular instance, the money changers, the folks who were selling and buying and whatever, had set up within the temple, probably, from what Jesus says, within the courtyard of the Gentiles. And so with all of that hubbub going on, with all of the people coming in and out, there wouldn't have been a whole lot of space. This was not a huge place. The temple was not massive. And so there would not have been space for those Gentiles to come in and worship God. And so when Jesus says, "Is my Father's house not meant to be a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers," what he's saying is, you have taken away this opportunity for worship from these people. And instead, you're trying to make a quick buck on not only at the expense of the Gentiles, but at the expense of the people who had traveled there to make sacrifices from far away. And Jesus is very, very unhappy about that. And so we get this kind of righteous fit of rage from Jesus, where he's flipping tables and driving them out. In one gospel, he actually makes a whip out of leather and is chasing people around with it, trying to get them out of the temple space. And so Jesus is angry. And I think this is both a gift and a warning for us, that of all the things Jesus could be angry about, Jesus is angry that these people have been shut out of the house of God. And also, I think it's a gift for us because Jesus does get angry. Jesus is not just the super chill kind of pastoral figure that we tend to imagine when we imagine Jesus. But Jesus is intense and angry and frustrated, and willing to act on it. And so, again, he would probably be charged with destruction of property, if this were a modern tale. But you'll notice he doesn't resort to violence against people. So, again, there are several interesting layers to this story. And then you have the fact that not only did he ride into Jerusalem on, a donkey, kind of making fun of the Roman military victory parades the day before, but he was already well known in Jerusalem as kind of a rabble-rouser. And so this, again, only turns the religious leaders of the day against him even more, because now he's messing with their prophets as well as their kind of religiosity and critiquing them in ways that they are not comfortable with. So this is a fascinating part of the Holy Week story that often gets skipped over in the hubbub of Palm Sunday and Easter and everything in between. So blessings to each of you as we continue on this Holy Week journey.